this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black T News. Hello. Welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, this, I guess, propaganda at this point. But last night or yesterday, I guess the story was exploding, I guess, when I was on air yesterday, and there was some kind of attack or launch or something, explosion, blast in Gaza that they said hit a hospital, and Hamas was saying that 500 people were dead. And I'm like, I don't know how they know that quickly, but that's what they were saying. And so at that point in time, it was contested by some people that are like, it's likely that that was their rocket and the Palestinians' rocket, and then it failed. And so that was already floating around yesterday when we were live at like 4 o'clock. And I mentioned a little bit and went into the rest of the story. So when I got off, I kept looking, and I think by then, stuff had pretty much been confirmed. There was different evidence that had come out that there was rockets that they were launching, because they launch rockets trying to kill people in Israel all the time. And some of them don't make it. I read like 30-40% of them don't make it. So there's evidence that I'll show you guys of it not making it, and then there's an explosion, and that's where it lands. And you've seen these, but there were these headlines all across the world. Mainstream media particularly just ran with it. New York Times kept updating, and they'd use this footage of like these buildings destroyed and giving the impression that this hospital is just demolished, all these people are dead. So in the light of day, when I woke up this morning, new images had come out, and a parking lot was hit, and in the chapel of the hospital, there's some glass, that's blown out, but building's intact, and it just wasn't what they said that it was. And that didn't stop, of course, them from spreading the information around. And I understand people get things wrong. I don't understand the need to jump to, hey, let's go with the story, because that's what Palestinian authorities and Hamas or whatever has told us. So yeah, let's just rush to that and just assume, instead of getting the facts right, because it's dangerous. Because, well, now we see there were protests that were happening all over the place, and communication, or what should be talks to try to minimize the war, have broken down. And I think it's very possible for Israel to go in and have their war within Gaza, and it not really expand that, and not drag us into World War III. That is very possible. If we didn't have like competence everywhere. And I think we have incompetence, with our leadership, but what the media did was just so irresponsible last night. And I'm not seeing much remorse for it. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they also were spreading it as well. And doesn't seem to have much remorse. And so we have confirmed in the US, that it wasn't Israel, with our own intelligence. That's what the Biden White House is saying. The Intel Committee has also come out with a statement saying it wasn't Israel either. So we'll walk through that, but it's just really irresponsible what the media did yesterday. And it's not unreasonable that they could have waited a little bit and just speculated that it wasn't Israel that did it. And even still with the coverage, they're showing images of buildings and other things that have nothing to do with the actual blast site, which it's a parking lot. um it's just really crazy how they are totally fine, totally okay with manipulating people. Another story that I want to talk to you guys about, pretty interesting news in the pop world. And Brittney Spears is coming out with a memoir, but in her memoir she mentions that she actually had an abortion while she was dating Justin Timberlake. And they were like, I've never been like a huge fan of either. I grew up, we weren't allowed to really listen to secular music and stuff, so I definitely wasn't into Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and stuff. But I was alive, so I knew they were together, and I've heard some of their music and stuff, and I know how big they were. And some people are pointing out some music that she had and some other music videos that she did that, if it has anything to do with Justin and what she went through, it makes it all the more heartbreaking. But a lot of people feel pressured by their partner to go ahead and um, have an abortion, and it's something that's not really talked about a lot. So I want to share her story. And you know, I see some people like, oh, like it's a brave, like, positive pro-choice kind of aspect of women share your abortion stories, kind of pride in it or whatever. But it just sounds really sad, um at least what's coming out thus far. And also I want to get to this story about this sorority guy that well, he believes he's a woman and joined a sorority. And there was this really sympathetic headline from the Washington Post, a story about him. And the truth is that he got into this sorority, and the women did, were very uncomfortable because he's pervy or whatever. So I want to go through that story. Hopefully there is enough time. I'm probably going to go over an hour. I will not mean to, but let's see what we can work out. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Costs a stream, it costs from my website, all that stuff. And I am pretty sure a lot of the things that I'm talking about lately are not, I keep getting like limited and eligible. So it's, my monetization this past week or so isn't been great. So anyway, if you want to support me, you guys can go to the website. You can also do stars if you're on Facebook. You guys can also do super chats. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can also do super thanks. That's a available option as well if you're not watching this live. So thank you to those of you who are watching live, and those of you who are watching back later. Very much do appreciate you. There's also different merch you guys can check out on my website. I'm actually wearing one of my shirts today. You guys can't see it too great, son. But it's my Frederick Douglass shirt. So let me scroll down and find that for you guys so you can see it. So this is the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document shirt. So this is one of my favorites. So you guys can check that out and other stuff. I still got these pumpkin spice mugs that you guys can get. Still, that season a little bit. So go ahead and get that for a pumpkin spice Trump lover in your life, I suppose. That I'd really like Michael Knowles to see that. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. He likes a good pumpkin spice. And also, you guys can check out my books on Amazon. I have fiction books, lots of fiction books, but I also have nonfiction books like, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion available as well. So without further delay, let's hop to it. So we saw different headlines, media reports that came out one after another. It was reported all over that Israel airstrike killed 500. And that word was from the Palestinian authorities, which is just, people report what Hamas tells them to. And so this is a collage. I'm sorry, that's the wrong. Actually, I clicked the wrong thing. So here's a collage of a couple of hundreds killed in Israeli strike in Gaza. There was Reuters, AP, Politico. I don't know if I see the political one on here. I didn't make this closet. I grabbed it, but I screen grab a political one. I don't have that up here, but New York Times. Let me show you. New York Times kept updating their stuff again and again and again. But here's what they had: Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital. Palestinians say. Instead of saying Palestinians say, they want you to have that front part in your brain and not question that back end. And this image here, I mean, look at the image there. Look at the image there that they have. um, and in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, they bombed this hospital. The people, they're getting people from under this rubble and all this other kind of stuff. It makes you really concerned about like a huge humanitarian issue. Makes it really have the slaughter hit home, I suppose. And in your mind, you're like 500 people. Oh my gosh. And it made people question. I mean, people are already questioning Israel and their retaliation in Gaza, and if it's going too far, and if they should just do a ceasefire. Mind you, Hamas is still launching rockets at them and still has many of their hostages captured. So there's that. They could, just release them as a show of goodwill, but they have not. So they still have people, and they still want to wipe out the Jews. So that's in their charter, Hamas. So that's always going to be a thing that is going to make them unsafe. So I don't doubt. I mean, I don't begrudge Israel for being like, we got to go to war. We got to take them out. And we don't have a future if these people are. I keep saying, like, what would you do if you knew there was a monster at the foot of your bed? You know, especially that was out to either kill your children, or in this case, they've killed and kidnapped many of them, and not just children, elderly, etc. What would you do to make sure that your kids were safe, that your families were safe? And when I hear people say free Palestine, I'm like, I wish they meant like free Palestine from Hamas, because I think that would be the best in everyone's interest. But um, Hamas, they hide in hospitals, they shoot off from residential areas, they have tunnels under civilian populations and stuff, and under, within hospitals, other stuff like that, in order to use people's human shields, because they expect that their enemy is far more compassionate in that regard than they are. They say that they love death like their enemies love life. So when people try to say that they're the same, they're not the same. You cannot like either. I could at least respect that position, but the idea that they're the same, they don't operate like they're the same. So if they just did an airstrike on a hospital and, purpose target or whatever that, and it maximized and killed all these civilians and stuff, that makes people around the world like, oh gosh, I can't, sign on with this. And also makes Muslims around the world extraordinarily upset. And there's a lot of groups sitting on the sidelines, you know but is Hezbollah and other folks going to jump in? That's the big question. Is this war going to expand out? Is it going to get to a point where, you know, US has to do more than just send aid for them to replenish, their supplies and other stuff like that for defending themselves? Um, I don't want it to have to expand. And I would think that that doesn't really have to. It really doesn't have to, if there was like competency, around the world, with in our administration, within, our media and stuff. But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. So anyway, let me show you this image again, before I show you what really happened. So this is the image that's in people's heads, and it's more like a parking lot that they hit. So it wasn't actually Israel's airstrike. It was, you know, Palestinian rockets that were trying to hit Israel. They didn't quite make it. That ended up hitting like a parking lot. So let me pull up one of the videos. Um, that shows a bit of the damage. And again, you don't see what kind of
هنا يا جماعة الخير مكان المجزرة الذي ارتكبها الاحتلال الصهيوني في حق المدنيين الآمنين في مشفى الأهلي.
So it looks like it just landed in the parking lot and the cars exploded. So so that's what's going on. But let me on CNN though, you still see stuff like, they're talking about the deadly blast, and they have, these images of this kind of wreckage and people going through the wreckage as opposed to people walking around a parking lot. So questions. Why? I do have a video of like the hospital chapel that isn't demolished, that has some broken stained glass, but not annihilation. Okay, so I did show you guys this particular video yesterday. I'll show this one first and then get on with the more conclusive stuff. So this is a video that came out pretty quickly. As I said, we were still on air. So people were noting it didn't sound quite like an airstrike. It didn't have the sort of debris that should have came up. It was the airstrike, and people were saying it sounded really close as well. When it was launched and stuff, that you could, so here's some surveillance footage that shows the rockets going up and then kind of veering. So there's that. This happened live on Al Jazeera. Now Al Jazeera is you shouldn't trust Al Jazeera, but this happened live, so they caught this live. Funny thing is though, they are now like still going with like the propaganda. At least I saw a pretty big stream. I didn't download it because it was what I saw was like a huge long video, so I didn't download it. I guess I could pull it up really quickly to show you guys how they're choosing to cover it, but they here's at least their live footage of what happened.
هذه المدينة هي الأكثر تعرضا للصواريخ منذ بداية هذه الحرب. عمدة المدينة كانت تحدث قبل أيام عن أكثر من 1000 صاروخ طال هذه المدينة، وأكثر من 170 صاروخا سقط بالفعل في داخلها وأحدث دمارا في البنى التحتية وفي السيارات وفي المباني العامة والخاصة.
شكرا جزيلا لك الياس كرم حتى اللحظة، وسنعود إليك في إطار هذه التغطية التي ستتابعها معكم سلمى الجمل. إليك سلمى.
شكرا ازدهار.
So again, they were launching the rockets, and you can see that didn't quite get there. Didn't quite make it. Let's see if I can find it really quick, but they were still posting that Israel killed 500, and so people are retweeting like their live footage at them. I don't see it really quickly, I'll move on. Here's also local um Israeli news showing the proof as well.
This is proof of Israel's claims that it was actually missiles from the Gaza Strip shot into the direction of the El Ahli hospital in Gaza City and not from Israel. This is Channel 12's camera. It is a camera situated in the city of Netivot, and its view is of the Gaza Strip. You see the time stamp on this. It's 6:59, and this is when it happens. We can press play on the tape, and you can see very clearly. Again, this is Channel 12's camera. You can see the rockets. This is the left red stamp fired over the hospital, which is the right, and you can see the blast. So that is proof of the fact that it came from the Gaza Strip. Our cameras, Channel 12's cameras. The President of the United States has already said it appears it was done by the other team, meaning he also realizes that it was shooting from inside Gaza over the hospital.
And here is President Joe Biden talking about it.
But the point is this, that I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you. But there's a lot of people out there not sure. So we've got to overcome a lot of things.
He says it appears, he does not mean just like from information that Israel shared, that the U.S. actually did, based on our intelligence, did confirm that it was also not from Israel. The Intel Committee also said, based on information from the House Intelligence Committee received from the administration regarding the hospital attack in Gaza, we believe that this was not the result of Israeli military action. So there's that as well. There's I did find the Al Jazeera stuff. I'll show it to you guys a little bit because they're still going along. So when I shared this a little bit online, people were like, I'm not trusting Al Jazeera. I'm like, it was live. So what they showed, I don't think if they had known, perhaps they wouldn't have allowed that footage to be shown. But, you know, it's on the internet.
Are running on a liter of water per day. They are rationing the calorie intake so that whatever food supplies are left can be stretched to the maximum. There's no fuel coming into Gaza to enable a water desalination plant to work for us and my colleagues to get clean drinking water, and for the bakeries to use clean water to make bread. It is very, very
so in the tweet it still says Israeli air attacks have killed hundreds of Palestinians, and the community notes does note that they were broadcasting live and actually caught the rockets as they fell back down. So you guys can go check that on Twitter if you would like to see that. So there's more evidence beyond the couple of videos of the rockets and the timing with the rockets. It's the right timing, right location, right pathway, geolocation stuff, radar, like drone footage they have that shows before and after, you know, the launch, and then, you know, what happened in the parking lot. But not only that, they also have a conversation that they intercepted between the terrorists talking about how they think oh shoot, it's one of ours.
بقول لك أول مرة بنشوف الصاروخ زي هيك والشظايا هذه، فبقول لك تبع الجهاد الصواريخ الجهاد الإسلامي هاي. إيه؟ فهم بقولوا تعاون الجهاد الإسلامي. إنه من عنا هذا؟ شكله من عنا مين اللي بيقول هيك؟ بيحكوا إنه الشظايا تبعت الصاروخ إنه الشظايا محلية مش زي شظايا إيش بتقول؟ سبحان الله من عندنا ما لقاش غيرين بجرثبي. عاد هذول تلاقيهم من المقبرة الورا دي بفلت محط فيهم. ايش ده؟ بتلاقيهم طالعين من المقبرة الورا المستشفى المعمداني دي اللي هو فسه ونزل عندهم. هو في مقبرة وراه؟ المعمداني ولك عند الساحة بالضبط.
هي وين لما تدخل على الساحة؟
أول ما تدخل على الساحة تدخلش على البلد، على إيدك اليمين في مستشفى المعمداني.
عرفتها.
So there's still people who don't believe, and it, I don't know, it is what it is. I don't know what else to tell you. There was a tweet from someone who's not like an official with IDF, but they do, like, I guess, run the socials or whatever, and people are like, aha, they posted it and they deleted it. So I guess I just want to show you guys so you know that I'm aware of it, but it was deleted and pulled down because you know, it wasn't true. But this person actually has posted some false information in the past. So if our people post bad information sometimes, but there's ample evidence that it wasn't Hamas. So they actually talked about, I mean, that it was Hamas. Well, actually, that it was Palestinian rockets. There's, you know, more than one terror group, I guess, it's there. So but CNN, they actually did discuss it, and I think I do have a clip of it. Let me pull it up really quick. And I'm not seeing it. Oh, here we go. I must have missed it. Here we go.
The hospital. There have been a lot of there's been a lot of confusion. We cannot obviously verify it ourselves. Israel has come out with some information saying, look, we have proof. But you did have someone who is a reservist who went online. He's also an influencer. He went online and he made these statements that basically Israel had bombed this hospital because there were, as he put it, Hamas terrorists inside. He then took that down. That went all over the world. Is he right? Is that true? And how do you prove otherwise?
So I'm not personally familiar with this specific reservist and the comment that he made and what he posted, what he took down. But first, there's an abundance of evidence that Israel was not behind that strike, that it was a missile that fell short inside the Gaza Strip. The U.S. president just confirmed it based on the evidence that we have shown him. And also there's an abundance of other evidence, including videos and this phone call between Hamas militants that was intercepted, in which they basically admit that it wasn't us. So there's no doubt about that. But it is very concerning that there is some, disinformation out there, and we have to be very, very accurate when we address such issues because it can cost lives.
Yeah.
By the way, I love MRC. They were at a pro-life event in January. I was like, thank you guys so much for just making clips and just posting them everywhere. That's saves me time. But yeah, I'm aware that post exists. That doesn't negate all the actual like evidence. So I don't know what else you can say. There's been nothing else to provide that says the contrary, at least that I've seen. I've been searching for it pretty diligently. I am concerned about so many people who are just into feeding the misinformation. Tim Pool had seemed so amazed by the misinformation. He's like, wait a minute, not only was it not Israel, that wasn't like the big explosion of the hospital, like it's still standing. And some people pointed out that some of his people have been posting a lot of misinformation like nonstop. So they're like, bruh, you gotta do something yourself. And he has spread the images of when Israel put out images of babies who were burned and killed. He elevated, and he didn't say, oh, this is for 100% AI and not true or whatever, but he helped to elevate that idea that it, by reposting and stuff, that the babies weren't actually killed, and people were saying, oh, this was AI generated and stuff. And there's so many unserious people right now in a world where we really need I don't know, the truth. We need stability and etc. And I understand people getting things wrong in real time. It's war. There's a lot of you have to make corrections. You have to update stories. But again, this particular situation could literally cost lives and cause division and escalate war. And so there's already different protests that have been happening and embassies at risk and other things. Here's a protest, in Baghdad, back to chanting, death to America and all that other stuff. So, yeah, it's going on all over. I just hope cooler heads will end up prevailing. But when you say that someone's responsible for killing 500 people at a hospital, it's a pretty big deal. But there are casualties. There will continue to be casualties, especially in Gaza, because they do operate, very close to civilians on purpose. And they do it because they expect that it will give their enemies pause. And for people who they're the same kind of game. Again, you can hate them. I can respect that a little bit. But the idea that they're the same when if they had the kind of firepower that Israel had, Israel wouldn't exist right now. So Israel could turn Gaza into a parking lot, but they are, being more careful about how they're going about things. So someone said, I don't get why this is important for us. We had children burned to death in Maui, which I definitely talked about, and definitely complained about the $700. And I've talked about Ohio. So I don't, is there selective outrage in some places? Maybe, but I don't I wouldn't say so here, but it's a pretty big deal because it could launch big war conflicts across that could drag us in. So it's something to monitor. It's something to be concerned about. I think concerned about, interested in, pray about. If people aren't interested, I guess I get that. Or Israel is our ally. There's that. And they do need our help to continue replenish their supplies, and I think that's something that we should continue to do. I know there's some people who don't want us to help them anymore. But again, they are our ally. They provide us with intelligence and tech and all sorts of different things. So I don't see how it's not relative, I guess. When I was a kid, man, I remember all the stuff was always in the news because there's always some kind of attack and rocket launches and stuff. I think with the Iron Dome, maybe people hear about the conflicts a lot less, but it's a shame. It's a shame. I think it's also relative because you look around at the protests and other things that are happening here and the ideology, and it really concerns me. I did a TikTok before I came on. I didn't post it yet, but I said, if you are a white person who's been called a colonizer, and this happens all the time on TikTok, people, I said, if you've been called a colonizer, if you've been called racist, and not just like openly racist, but also have like implicit bias, um, if you've been told that you benefit from a systemically racist America, all these systemically racist institutions. CRT teaches that you have there's no benefit to you to even end systemic racism, because you benefit from it. And even if you do something that looks like it's not racist, it's not really because you're not racist, because there's some kind of benefit for you. So it's just like a never-ending circle of racism that you just can't get out of. And if you've been told those things and people hold that kind of animosity against you, I said I would be concerned, because people have told me that Hamas aren't terrorists, and they're justified even in what they've done, because they're just resisting, and we have no right to tell them how to resist because they've been oppressed by Israel. So I think it's concerning the sort of ideologies that are aligned with them and defending them, because it makes me concerned that if opportunities arise, that people would, I don't know, commit all kinds of violence and stuff here against oppressors and whatever. And I don't know if some people could go quite as barbaric as what we've seen, but if you flash back to 2020 and the riots that were happening with the BLM protests and stuff, nothing that we saw on TV, with the even with George Floyd and all the kinds of other things, justified the sort of stuff that we had going on for the summer. It was just one crazy thing. And I'm not saying that every protest was, crazy or whatever. After the first couple got crazy, I don't know why you'd go, but I know people who went to peaceful protests and thought that they were just, standing up for the Black community and drawing attention to police brutality, etc. Not everybody was some kind of like raving Marxist or something. But I have talked about the Kenosha riots quite a bit, and I've talked about this particular incident a lot, and I've played it before. I don't have the clip like pulled up, so I don't have time to search it for you, but I can describe it pretty well. There was a old man who had a fire extinguisher. He was like using it to get people out of the building and whatever. And this woman was filming, and all of a sudden there was this, Black person who came and just clocked him and broke his jaw, and he just fell and was passed out and bleeding. And the person who was filming just starts screaming, and she goes to him, and she looks up at all these people who are just rioting, and so she's like, don't you see what's going to happen to you guys once everybody sees this? And this girl's like, nah, but he was laying females out with the air. And yes, she sounded like that. Absolutely, she sounded like that. In laying the females out with the air, she meant with the fire extinguisher. And then then there was another girl who's like, you don't understand, these Black men out here, they're terrified, and because they're killing us, and saying all this stuff. So they enrage these people, and they give them this victim mentality, and they tell them, because you are victims, it's okay to go out and be lawless, because the law is unjust, because the systems are unjust, and no one has the right to tell you not to resist, to react. The riots are the cries of the unheard. If you had a problem with people going in mass robbing the flash mobs of people just stealing, if you had a problem with that, then they said you care more about things than you care about Black lives, and they would try to guilt you into speaking with moral clarity on the situation. So I'm not surprised to see BLM Chicago being for, standing up for Hamas and what happened, and the paraglider stuff, which, by the way, there's people out here who believe that there were no paragliders. And I guess because there's a video that people circulated around from Egypt or something some time ago, and that just because some videos are fake doesn't mean that everything else is fake. So I have people commenting on a video I did that about the BLM Chicago and TMZ when they went off about him. They're like, oh, they debunked all this stuff. There's no paragliders. I'm like, literally just look it up. So and that's their takeaway. Like there were no paragliders, so it doesn't matter that BLM, was okay with and stuck up for the people who were killing these civilians at a concert. Like, where's your brain at? Where's your brain at? Seriously. And they didn't really apologize, and then they were like, if you don't like us, bye. I played a video. I don't know if I played it for you guys, but I did post the video when I talked about TMZ, but I also cut in other stuff as well, like Patrice Cullors. I think I did play this for you guys, maybe last week or something, talking about BLM and talking about Palestine and resistance and other kind of stuff. And the ideology, it's like intersecting and stuff. So again, I'm not saying that maybe people would be as barbaric as what we saw, but it is concerning that people don't have the moral clarity to assign, at least if you want to blame both parties for long standing whatever and not coming together for a two-state solution, whatever. But I mean, every time Israel's tried, Palestinians have really kind of screwed that up and have not wanted that. So I don't know how genuine people are, or just whether they're ignorant or whatever, but that conflict there, regardless of how much you feel that the Palestinians are oppressed or people in Gaza are oppressed, there's nothing that could there's no amount of oppression that would make it okay to go and just rape women and cut off people's fingers and toes and kidnap these babies and the sort of stuff that happened. That's not that's not resisting. It's terrorism. It's terrorism, and BLM was terrorism. The way that and people were like, they strategically go to certain places and do this and do that, and I'm like, that's terrorism. You're suggesting terrorism. People are like, no. So I'm like, no, you you aren't talking about committing acts of terror. But if you had a problem with it, then you were the person in the wrong, or not in the wrong, but they try to make you feel like an outcast. 2020 was a very frustrating time. Because it just kind of felt like you're in the twilight zone and everyone else is just unaware of it. And you're just waiting to get to the end of the episode or something, and hoping that there's a happy ending or something. But we still live in the results of that crazy world, and there's some people who know that things went too far and they were just wrapped up in the social pressure, but a lot of that ideology persists. So yeah, I think it's still culturally important to talk about what's going on, because it certainly bleeds over here. I mean, the protests that are going on, that happen in Dearborn and stuff, and people getting up and saying Hamas aren't terrorists, that's not too far from me. I find that concerning, because I'm like, why is there this lack of moral clarity? Because again, even if you don't like Israel, clearly what they did and they're terrorists. They're terrorists, and they'll say we're peaceful people, but when you've been oppressed for X amount of years, or X amount of this, X amount of that, and then they go on to basically justify what happened. And again, I can't imagine what kind of travesty that you could bring up that would make it okay to do the sort of things that they did. Now, maybe there's people who just don't believe that all the sort of horrible things that are reported happened, and that's clearly the case for a lot of people. But it's another reason why it's good to talk about it. So hope I made a good case, at least for why I'm talking about it. I mean, there's certainly things that our government should be doing and should be concerned with and should be focused on. And I think they drop the ball obviously with a lot of stuff. But part of, at least, I mean, Joe Biden's over in Israel. He is, part of his job is being the commander in chief, though he sucks at it. To me, though, if he's going over there, like last night, things were up in the air as far as people receiving information and thinking that Israel did that. So I think it was Blinken who said that Biden was going to have a tough conversation to Israel as a friend or whatever. And I heard Ben say, has he had a tough conversation with Zelensky? Why, like, why do they talk like that only with Israel, whatever? But anyway, um, I'm like, I already did videos and talked about this. Like, if the United States was in a similar position, we would not allow ourselves to be lectured on how we were going to proceed. I'm not saying we wouldn't have protests and people saying that, we should do X, Y, and Z, because it's always like happened with our wars and other stuff like that. But we wouldn't allow people to treat us the way that Israel gets treated, for defending themselves against, you know, people who want to destroy them, wipe off them off the face of the map. But I was thinking back to like Afghanistan and how there was the attack and that killed our troops, and Biden was like, we're gonna get them, and immediately they did like a strike, and they're like, the strike was true, but it wasn't true. I mean, they truly strike someone, but they striked not a terrorist. They struck an aid worker, and they were like, there was a secondary explosion, so there were bombs. No, there wasn't. There was no secondary explosion, and he wasn't carrying bombs. He's carrying water canisters because he's bringing water home to the village. And I can't remember how many people were killed. Civilians were killed, but they killed kids and stuff, and they didn't even they didn't. No one was held accountable for that. No one was held accountable. Obviously not Biden. Well, if he's, hopefully he won't be reelected. So that maybe that's the only accountability we'll get. But his generals or people on down the line, they didn't. From my understanding, they didn't reprimand anyone about that. So that's pretty awful. And I've mentioned that a lot because it just goes to show you how awful folks can be, and how the Biden administration isn't into accountability at all, which is sad. But I certainly didn't tell that story to talk about how heroic America is. I certainly did not. The point of telling that story is I don't think we have a lot of room to lecture other folks right now on how they want to respond, because that was not only incompetency. I don't think they purposely killed people who they thought weren't terrorists. I think they probably maybe did, but they didn't do their due diligence. And some civilians obviously were killed. And I guess what bothers me most about it, beyond those people being killed, is the fact that there was no accountability and stuff. So I don't think Joe Biden, or if he brought back his buddy Obama that loved drone strikes too, I don't think they have the place if they want to just go lecture Israel about how they're going to defend themselves from annihilation. So anyway, I've talked way too long and enough about this topic today. I'm going to move on. So Brittney Spears, what a big change. So it's been reported that Brittney Spears, she has a memoir that's coming out, and she actually had an abortion back in the day when she was with Justin Timberlake. So I'm going to read this article from People, from this little snippet of it. Now, as I said earlier, I was not into Brittney and Justin. Like, we didn't really listen to secular music and stuff growing up. We weren't really allowed to, but I wasn't dead. I knew Hit Me Baby One More Time, and in the he was in NSYNC, right? I think it was NSYNC. So they were together, and it was a huge deal, but apparently he wasn't ready to be a father, according to her, and she had an abortion. Let me zoom this up a little bit for my sake. You guys can maybe probably already read it, but in her upcoming memoir, The Woman in Me, the pop icon reveals that when she dated Justin Timberlake, she became pregnant with his baby, but had an abortion. People confirms. It was a surprise for me. It wasn't a tragedy. I love Justin so much. I always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I anticipated. Spears, now 41, writes. of the pregnancy in the book, but Justin definitely wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He said we weren't ready to have a baby in our lives, that we were way too young. A rep for Timberlake did not immediately respond to people's request for a comment. So, yeah, they were it back in the day. She writes in the book, if it had been left up to me alone, I never would have done it. And yet Justin was so sure that he didn't want to be a father. Spears writes of her experience undergoing the abortion. To this day, it's one of the most agonizing things I have ever experienced in my life. After Spears and Timberlake split in 2002, she went on to become a mother, welcoming two sons, Sean Preston, 18, and Jane James, 17, with her second husband, Kevin Federline. Spears will release her much anticipated memoir on October 24th through Gallery Books, an imprint of Simon and Schuster. So, I think that is really tragic. Like I said earlier, I think there's some we've seen some like pro-choice people like elevate the story, and it just sounds so sad to me. But women are in her situation all the time where they feel pressured, and some women are like, screw it, I'm gonna do whatever, and the men just have to like support it or whatnot. And other times women are just, you know, they're looking for a bit of support, and if they don't feel like they're gonna get it, then they feel like they have to. And then there's issues where they're really pressured into it, and they feel that, I don't know if they feel that, or maybe they're coerced into it or not. And I don't know how much pressure Justin put on her, but as a young pop icon, they're both icons in their field. She's not the only woman in the music industry or whatever that has done that. There's plenty of other examples. Um, I mentioned some in my book. I know Keke Palmer. She's not a musician, but she had an abortion as well. Thought she was couldn't juggle her fame and being a motherhood, etc. Um, which is, she loves being a mother now, and I don't know if that was really that far removed. So I think these women in those situations were wrong, and they could have endured and found a way to make it work. Not that it wouldn't have been difficult, not that it wouldn't have been hard, and they wouldn't need to support, etc. And not saying that would have caused drama, because you're not married. I think that always causes some kind of bit of drama. But excuse me. But I think women are stronger than they give themselves credit for. And there's no word from Justin's team as far as since the time looking into it. But a lot of women, they go on and have it, and there's not the conversations of if they had had some more support of their partner, would have supported them some more, etc. So I just think it's so sad. um I know some people are kind of like, oh, Brittney, like, ooh, a millionaire, talking about, oh, they couldn't have did this, oh, and kind of making it seem like she's such a brat, I guess. You can have that attitude or whatever, but when you bring a human being into the world and it changes your life so dramatically, it is a really heavy situation. Um it's not justification for taking a life, though. But as she said, that Justin thought that they were too young. It it always amazes me that people feel that they're too young to be parents, but they're not too young to do the baby making. I think that's a very, you know, fun and magical privilege for folks, and um but it is part of our reproduction. And if you're old enough to know what happens when you procreate and the risk associated with it, then I think you need to be accountable for what happens after. And if you are too young, or mentally incapable to know what would happen if you procreate, then you're probably not capable of consenting to the action. So I also think it's interesting that people feel that they're too young to be a parent, but they're the right age to in their child's life. That, that seems to not track with me. I don't understand that. And that's a trauma that can follow you your whole entire life. There's women who say they don't have any regrets, and I don't know if I've ever really had a conversation with a woman that I 100% believe that it didn't really impact them significantly. But it sounds like it's been really hard for Brittney. But some people are pointing out that a particular song that she wrote, people believe that it was about Justin. And I hoped I'm going to play it a little bit and then put the sound down and hope I don't get dinged for copyright. But it's called Every Time, and there's a lot of like family stuff in it. And it may very well be about Justin, but gosh, it's really making people cry thinking about it today. So, yeah. So people are thinking that's about Justin, and that some other things in the video is making sense. And she did co-write that particular song. So, the lyrics: "Notice me, take my hand. Why are we strangers when our love is strong? Why carry on without me? Every time I try to fly, I fall. Without my wings, I feel so small. I guess I need you, baby. And every time I see you in my dreams, I see your face. It's haunting me. I guess I need you, baby. I make believe that you are here. It's the only way I see clear. What have I done? You seem to move uneasy. And every time I try to fly, I fall. Without my wings, I feel so small. I guess I need you, baby. And every time I see you in my dreams, I see your face. You're haunting me. I guess I need you, baby. I may have made it rain. Please forgive me. My weakness caused you pain. And this song's my sorry. At night, I pray that soon your face will fade away. And every time I try to fly, I fall. Without my wings, I feel so small. I guess I need you, baby. And every time I see you in my dreams, I see your face. You're haunting me. I guess I need you, baby. So, I know Brittney has all kinds of issues that she's dealing with. Oh, sorry, I kicked my mic. And I wonder how much this has weighed on her or guilted her, or you never know. I did a video, actually was taken down from YouTube. I guess it was a little too real for him. So you'll have to find it on Rumble. But I did an interview with Deb Tilden from Smart Woman's Healthcare, and SMART stands for, gosh, what does it stand for? It's about information for women when they've had abortion, and kind of what happens after, what can happen as a result, and what happens afterwards. And she went into the different grief that she had after she had her abortion, and how it impacted her even without her knowing. And she had to unpack years later. And so she talks about how so many women, they're told that it's a glob of tissue, that it doesn't really matter, and they go on and they have their abortion, and then they just suffer in silence for years without really being able to talk about it. And I think that one of the many reasons why there's so many people that are pro-choice and will say that I'm, not for abortion, but I'm for it with other people, because so many people know a woman who has participated and had one. and they don't want to judge them too harshly, and they empathize with them and they sympathize with them. And I understand that, but that still doesn't mean that it's something that we should continue on and to keep creating these heartaches for women. And beyond how the women feel about it, it is still deliberately killing a living human being. And so we still have to stand against that. Um, but I think there's more than one victim in the situation. I don't think it's just the baby, and I think it's also the woman. And again, many of them suffer in silence. So my heart goes out to Brittney Spears and this pain that she's had to keep with her for a long time. Um, you know, my heart really goes out to her. And so um it's just really awful. And some people are like, and Justin Timberlake had the nerve to write "Cry Me a River." I don't know what was their falling out of their relationship, or what ultimately ended it the way that it did, or whatnot. And you know, according to Brittany, this happened. Who knows that? I don't. This would be a heck of a thing to make up, but you know, this kind of things happens all the time. But even if men can press or push or pressure, um men will also have regret as well. So I don't know what he's going through or thinking about or has throughout the years. um but I just think it's a sad situation for people to find themselves in. I think that they should have had the courage to um let life happen and celebrate it and take care of it. um but it did happen a long time ago. But I want less couples to find themselves in these kinds of situations. So it's too bad. It's too bad. Anyway, before I let you guys go, I'm a little over the hour, but let's see if I can get through this really quick. So um there was a story that was put out by, I believe it was NBC, and it was about a trans woman who joined a sorority, and they had a really sympathetic take on it. And this person doesn't deserve the sympathy. Because I don't understand why so many people are so gung ho, and I've said this many times, I'll keep saying it, why they feel that we have to grant trans women space, and just ignore how women feel about it, suppress their concerns, their hurts, their safety concerns, um, not just the fact that they feel uncomfortable. So I've been trying to get to the story for a bit, with the news just kind of popping off in the way that it has. I haven't been able to. So I don't want to put it off, especially because I said I would get to it today. I'm trying to find the headline from NBC. I'm going to read an article from Redux. If you don't follow Redux, I recommend that you do, especially if you care about this particular issue with women's sports, and what's going on in women's spas and different schools and other stuff like that. So they do fight for women to be able to have their own spaces. Here we go. I found it. um, so their job is to inform the public. So they've done a pretty good job. I've shared many of their articles. But this is under like a paid article, so you won't be able to read it. But a trans woman joined a sorority, then her new sisters turned on her. A 21-year-old University of Wyoming student was looking for community. Instead, she faced death threats, a federal lawsuit, and an attempt to kick her out. That is a man. That is a man. So yeah, very sympathetic sort of telling. Obviously they respect the pronouns of this individual, and the community notes got them. So this is the Redux article, or at least I'm going to read from the Redux article. Let me pull it up for you guys so you can see it too. But this sort of thing needs to stop, like all the way. Just all the way. Wyoming sorority members forced to admit trans identifying male in the court suit. So that's him. So not a small dude. I don't know how tall he is, but a sorority at the University of Wyoming will be forced to accommodate a 6'2". Oh, there you go. That's pretty tall. Trans identified male after the federal district court rejected a suit brought by 6 of the female members. Women from Kappa Kappa Gamma sued the national leadership for their sorority after expressing discomfort with the presence of Artemis Langford. Despite hearing testimony from the women, some of whom stated Langford had watched them undress with an erection, Judge Alan Johnson dismissed the case of Weston Brook versus Kappa Kappa Gamma fraternity on August 25th. Johnson stated that redefining woman to include males was Kappa Kappa Gamma's bedrock right as a private voluntary organization, and one this court may not invade. In his decision, Johnson wrote, the University of Wyoming's chapter voted to admit and more broadly a sorority of hundreds of thousands approved Langford. With its inquiry beginning and ending there, the court will not define woman today. The delegate of a private voluntary organization interpreted woman otherwise undefined in the nonprofit's bylaws expansively. This judge may not invade Kappa Kappa Gamma's freedom of expressive association and inject the circumscribed definition plaintiffs urge. While the KKG bylaws state that a new member shall be a woman, Judge Johnson found that no bylaw defined woman. Loophole. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Judge Johnson found that no bylaw defined woman. Johnson also cited a 2018 guide for supporting our LGBTQIA plus members, which states Kappa Kappa Gamma is a single gendered organization comprised of women and individuals who identify as women, whose governing documents do not discriminate in membership selection except for requiring good scholarship and ethical character. Who's getting an erection as he's watching girls undress. So Langford was admitted to KKG last September following the results of a vote enabled by the language put forward in the sorority's inclusivity guide. It's going to screw you every time, ladies. However, not all of the women were pleased with the decision, with some alleging that they had felt pressured into accepting him against their will. Last year, one sorority member came forward to state that the women were initially promised anonymity in regards to the voting process, only to then be required to identify themselves on the online ballot form. This resulted in women feeling intimidated with voicing their concerns about a male entering the sorority. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. In a meeting held to discuss Langford's potential candidacy, KKG chapter leaders, including the president and membership chair, allegedly dismissed the concerns of women who expressed discomfort. Back to the online ballot situation, the fact that you can there are some circumstances where I've been in places where they want you to do everybody like hold your hand up or whatever and show who's there, and they've definitely used that against people and retaliated. Once they see like, oh, your side lost, oh, you guys tried to defeat our side, okay, well, we're going to make sure that none of you are going to convention to vote or something like that, or you guys can't even be like alternates, like we're going to totally ice you out, how dare you. So people will use, like, if they get your information to see how you voted, they will use that as an intimidation tactic. It is so good that you can go into a private ballot box and vote and no one has to know exactly how you voted or whatever. You have that freedom of that privacy. um when my sister ran for chair for the Michigan Republican Party, it was a pretty close election, but there were some people who most people that we talked to who had endorsed our opponent were pretty pressured into doing it. And they were just like, I think it's a good thing for your sister that there is a secret ballot. So that's a long story if you weren't here for any time that I've explained it before, but yeah, people do try to intimidate you by knowing how you voted. So you still need to stand up for what's right, but I understand the game. I understand why some of these girls felt pressure, because if you don't go along, there's definitely people who will try to intimidate you and maybe retaliate if you're not into the whole, mafia of the LGBT community. So regardless of what your political views are, our Kappa values are acceptance and kindness. So if that is something that you disagree with, that's not in line with Kappa values, one member allegedly said at the time. Another member is reported to have said that if you vote no, it better be for issues with that new member, or else it's homophobic. The source told the National Review that comments made by KKG leaders downplayed the worries women had about sharing residence with Langford. If your only concerns are about her living in the house, you are thinking too far down the road. And if you have something to say about this that isn't kind or respectful, keep it to yourself. So just shut up, be quiet, and smile. As a member of Kappa Kappa Gamma, Langford, who is 6'2" and weighs approximately 260 pounds, is granted access to the KKG sorority house, which accommodates up to 50 women. I thought he probably would have been heavier than 260 from the photo. Especially if he's that tall. Langford had been residing elsewhere at the time of the first. Does that make sense to you that from the photo that the face would be that fat if he's 6'2" and 260? Though Langford had been residing elsewhere at the time of the first filing, women alleged that he would frequently sit in the second floor common area and had been observed watching the women on multiple occasions. According to court records, Langford had been peeping at the women and while they were in intimate situations, and on at least one occasion had visible erection while doing so. One sorority member walked down the hall to take a shower wearing only a towel. She felt the unsettling presence, turned and saw Langford watching her silently. The court document reads, Langford has, while watching members enter the sorority house, had an erection visible through his leggings. The suit says other times he had a pillow in his lap. As evidenced by his Tinder profile, Langford is sexually interested in women. So he's a lesbian, y'all. It is further stated in the suit that Langford took photographs of the women while at a sorority slumber party, where he was also said to have made inappropriate comments. He repeatedly questioned the women about what vaginas look like, breast cup size, whether women were considering breast reductions and birth control. The complaint had claimed on another occasion Langford was supposed to leave a sorority slumber party by 10 p.m. that evening, but did not, saying that he intended to leave after the women fell asleep. After singing to himself at approximately 11 p.m., Langford finally left the residence at midnight, only to return the next morning. At that time, it is stated that Langford stood silently in the corner of the room while watching other pledges change out of their sleeping garments. He was also said to have sat in the back of a sorority yoga class for an hour in December 2022 and watched the assembled young women flex their bodies. Langford has denied these allegations. 7 women initially filed a lawsuit against KKG leadership in March, though one woman removed herself from the litigation after the women were told that the identities could not be protected. In May, a judge twice prohibited the women from suing anonymously, while stipulating that Langford's identity should remain hidden. Langford was at first referred to by the pseudonym Terry Smith and made male pronouns in the legal documents. 6 of the women then refiled the lawsuit under their own names and have requested that the court void Langford's membership in KKG. Attorney Casey Caveran Representing the woman, had argued that Langford's access and presence in the sorority house violates the housing contract, and that women had agreed to sign. It is really uncomfortable. Some of the girls have been sexually assaulted and sexually harassed. Some girls live in constant fear in our home, one of the sorority members told Megyn Kelly during an interview on her podcast in May. Despite this, Judge Johnson disagreed, asserting that the women's housing situation in their contracts were not the subject of the litigation. Plaintiffs allege that KKG breached their housing contracts by allowing a transgender woman to live in the chapter house in violation of KKG's governing documents. Once again, though, plaintiffs failed to cite the court to any explicit breach within the housing contracts, the ruling states. Lawyers representing Kappa Kappa Gamma had previously depicted the suit as an attempt by vocal minority to impose their personal beliefs at the cost of Langford's and the sorority. In June, the sorority filed a motion to dismiss the suit, calling it frivolous attempt to eject Langford for their own political purposes. According to the motion, the women suing are flinging dehumanizing mud in order to bully Miss Langford on the national stage. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Perhaps the greatest wrongs in this case are not the ones plaintiffs and their supporters imagine they have suffered, but the ones that they have inflicted through their conduct since filing the complaint. They wrote, regardless of personal views on the rights of transgender people, the cruelty that plaintiffs and their supporters have shown toward Langford and anyone in Kappa who supports Langford is disturbing. Last week, local outlet will file sympathetically profiled Langford and attempted to portray the woman's objections with his presence in the sorority house as homophobic, asserting that his declared sexual interest in women qualified him as being gay. The article also revealed that Langford had joined his school's Genders and Sexualities Alliance organization while a freshman in Lander Valley High School. While still a student, Langford began to declare a transgender status, an issue which divided his parents and, as it was implied, contributed to their decision to divorce. The lawsuit against Artemis is horrible, false, and causing harm to Artemis and other trans people, Langford's lawyer, Rachel Berkness, told Wolfile. The reality is this lawsuit is being used as clickbait so that plaintiffs' lawyers can raise money at the expense of the kind and wonderful student in our community, Langford's lawyer told Wolfile. I hope people look back at this case in the same way they look back at other attacks on members of minority groups in our history as shameful and not who we are. Okay, we're almost done. As previously revealed by Redux, Artemis Langford's given name is Dallin, and he began identifying as transgender while participating in mock micronations in high school. According to Micronations wiki entry, on the 11th of June 2017, Dallin Langford announced to the Micronation community that she was transgender and was given a name to change Artemis Langford as reflection of the revelation. The kingdom changed to a queendom and from king to queen. How horrifying, how absolutely horrifying of a situation to be in. So, ladies, like to the people who couldn't understand and didn't want to stand up for the women who were uncomfortable with the situation, shame on you. Like, how can you not stand with women like that kind of situation? It doesn't make any sense. Like, oh well, it's fine because he's gay. Is he though? um there are people who are have all kinds of different issues that should be diagnosed and dealt with, and they self-diagnose or whatever, and they decide that they are trans, and they're still attracted to women, and they like themselves, they're sexually attracted to themselves in the female form, but they still like other women's bodies, and they get turned on, and are they get off on these women also being you know, oppressed in these situations as being the victims, and they're the ones in power. Maybe they didn't feel like they're empowered in other situations, but in this situations they are the ones empowered, and there's nothing that these women can do about it. And the fact that they don't care, the fact that they're making these women so uncomfortable and they still get off on it is just freaking sick. And the fact that these different folks are doing these, you know, the Washington Post and other folks are doing these, favorable sort of pieces on dudes like him don't make any sense to me. I'm going to show you guys this picture again of the Washington Post, because I don't. This person has to be bigger than 260. I think. I think they got to be bigger than 260, be 6'2", and still look this kind of chunky. 6'2" is that's a good size for a guy. And so even 260, I think that would just shape the body would be shaped a bit differently. So, obviously, it doesn't look like they really work out, no lift or whatever. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Please check out different merch that we have on the site, like this cool shirt that I have on that I'll show you guys a picture because you obviously can't see it because I'm not within the view there. So this is my Frederick Douglass shirt. The Constitution is a glorious liberty document. So you guys can get that shirt and other shirt stuff that's available at blacktnews.com. Check out different merchandise. Different books that I have. If you go to the merchandise page, there's a banner that will take you to my book website where you guys can learn a little bit more about what I write. And I have, books that are for young adults and new adults and chapter books and so on. So go ahead and check it out. And check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. It covers, obviously, theology, but it does go into rights. It goes into science. It goes into politics. So it's a very well-rounded book. So go ahead and check it out. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.